How are you, Pastor?
I'm very well, yourself.
I'm good. So, may you introduce yourself?
My name is Shoalllyn Stoffels.
Shoalllyn Stoffels.
Shoalllyn Stoffels, yes.
Okay, and then you are from here in Felixstowe?
Yes, I'm from Felixstowe. I live in Felixstowe. I'm actually ordained pastor.
You are an ordained pastor.
2019, I was ordained by my father, my late father, Pastor Stoffels, in Bloemfontein, rather in Kimberley.
Oh, in Kimberley?
Yeah, I was
You've
there.
been traveling, eh?
I was there attending a church there, or pastoring a church, one of my father's churches in Uppington, in the Northern Cape.
Okay, awesome.
With my wife and my children. Yes.
Okay, awesome. And you said you have been ordained, meaning you are in full-time ministry. You've been in full-time ministry.
Since 2012.
Since 2012, awesome.
March 2012, I've been in full-time ministry.
How did it come about, a guy from Felix? It seemed like it used to be maybe more gangsterish. So what led you to making that decision to go a different direction, which is the faith direction?
Well, as I said, 2012 I started full-time, but 2004 I gave my heart to the Lord. By that time I was smoking marijuana, cigarettes, drinking.
Okay.
So I made a difference. I decided to change my ways.
And you were a preacher's kid, by the way. You were a PK.
Yes.
How was it like growing up as a PK then?
Well, my father didn't live here at the time. We attended church here where we are now.
Okay.
But it wasn't this place, it was at the community center.
Okay.
Community hall rather. So I would visit my father holidays in Bloemfontein. Yeah. In Bloemfontein holidays I would visit my father.
Okay.
And then, well, it was nice, but you know, you were exposed to all of the other stuff, influence, peer pressure.
From the community, friends.
Yeah, friends, community, even family members.
Yeah.
And then I left it in 2004, the end of the year, gave my life to Christ. And then I backslidden 2009. I thought it was roses and sunshine to be born again.
Okay.
And then through persecution, tribulation, and trials that I had to encounter, which everyone has to face. Then I backslid. I came back to Gauteng, to Joburg, into Felixstowe. And that is the year I fell into drugs.
Before you became a Christian, you were only drinking, smoking, and into marijuana. And then after you backslidden, you went into drugs.
Yes. So I came
what kind
back,
of drugs, maybe? Can you break that down? What kind of drugs? What kind of drugs?
I was at the time using cat.
Cat?
Cat was known at that time. So later on, I was using cocaine.
Okay.
So then I fell into gangsterism as well in this community.
Okay.
So as a result of that, I got shot also in the process.
You got shot where?
Yeah, I was shot 3 times in my hand.
What happened? What was
it was a
gang-related thing.
Gang-related.
Okay.
Gang-related. It was a shootout. So I got shot in the process. You know, almost assaulted, and then also gun pointed, almost hijacked, etc. So then I fell into all these things in Felixstowe due to my cousin's influence, you know, and friends. Yeah. So then I gave my life to Christ again in the year 2000. Excuse me.
Sorry.
In the year 2012 again. I went back to Jesus. I changed my ways. I went back to Bloemfontein.
What inspired that reconsidering, coming back to your senses? How was it like? What made you to say, you know what, I think this life of crime and gangsterism and drugs, I'm done with it? What inspired that? What motivated you to change again, to go back?
To go back.
Yeah.
Well, I always knew who I was.
Okay.
I always knew. I always tell the people it was just a bad experiment I had. Okay. So when you are hurt, when you are in pain, childhood trauma, all those things, you didn't deal with it as a person. You eventually find something to cope with. Because Jesus was no more my coping mechanism. I had nothing else to cope.
Now you had to come with alternative ways.
Yes. So I knew there was a son, a child of God. So eventually I knew and I asked God to save me. What inspired me was who I was and who I believed God had called me to be. So God's Spirit inside of me, God's Word that was inside of me, always inspired me, always motivated me. It changed me from the inside. So even though I was in this addiction and everything else, I knew I was called to bring people out of addiction. So somehow I knew God was using this experience I had for future references.
Awesome, awesome. So now you coming back to the Lord, and then you get back full into the ministry. How was the church's reception, knowing that you are from the streets now? You were part of the church. You went to the streets. Now you are coming back. How was the prodigal son returned? The elder brothers, how did they treat you in this instance?
Well, you'll always get conflict in the church.
Yeah.
We must know, when we study the Bible, we'll find a situation with Jacob and Esau. You'll realize people fighting for a birthright, believing this is mine, you got us here, you went back into the world. They may not understand what happened, what the journey, just like with Joseph. People didn't understand, he didn't understand his journey. But I went back to church. My parents, as a result, they were one of the happiest people because they knew who I was. So they accepted me. That's all that mattered. My father was the apostle, and my mother, as well, my stepmother. And through that inspired me. Few of the members in the congregation in the church also were happy to see me and to have me back. So that was most important. What everybody else thought and said didn't matter to me.
Okay, and now from the gangsters now, your crew members, your squad, your friend, your homies, how did they feel about you now leaving them? How did they receive that? How did they treat you afterwards?
Well, some of them were happy. Some of them were inspired and motivated. But most of them thought like, "Brah, how can you leave us to go back to church? We still need you in our groups and as a family. This is what we do." But most of my family and friends were born again once before. So for me to go back, people will be jealous. People will feel, you think you're better now since you are back to the Lord. But I never took that as
an offense or a discouragement.
Yeah, it never discouraged me because I knew who I was. But as for them, I knew a time will come such as this, when God will come and where they will understand one day, even though they didn't understand at that time.
Okay. This particular program that you came up with in the church for the brothers now, what really inspired you to say, you know what, I'm taking this upon myself to say, you know what, I'm going back to the gangsters and I'm going to talk about the Lord and then about this addiction, and I want them to leave this addiction?
Well, the first thing that inspired me was the calling on my life. Okay. I knew I was called for the people that was like me. So I always wondered, what is wrong with the church? Why don't most of them go out and reach these guys? Because when I was in the addiction, none of them came to me. And that is the thing that hurt me. I always thought while I was in church, I'd backslided, but nobody comes back to see where I am. So I realized, and that broke me, that hurt me, made me feel rejected and neglected from the saints. So that was the main thing that inspired me. And just after it inspired me, after the death of my father, a year and 6 months ago, I started a prayer group in Gangsterism, 24/7 prayer watch. So we prayed for about 10 months. And after the 10 months, I did a 1,000-kilometer run.
Okay.
Last year, August, I ran to Beaufort West from here.
Okay.
With two of my cousins that joined me.
Okay.
For fundraising and that purposes, but also to prepare me for endurance purposes, mentally and physically, to understand what I will be busy with. So the real reason was because I knew these guys as nobody they can go back to it. The drugs isn't a problem. The drugs was never really the problem. It was many other factors that contributed to the addiction.
Okay, namely
childhood trauma, peer pressure, influence, bad company. Like the Bible says, bad company corrupts good morals.
Good morals.
And then also just people having an experiment to see how this thing works as a result of peer pressure, wanting to be accepted and to be fit in. So all those things starts when your parents go to divorce, you have been neglected as a child. Most of them are neglected where there are no fathers. So that the leg is there, they go out to gangsterism into the world, starting small groups, because they have a desire to have a father. So to have a mentor, you have somebody that will help you.
They look up to,
Yes. So that was my initiative. So today, some of them call me daddy, father, papa. Some of them are older than me. The oldest one under the program, 43 years old.
Oh.
And he calls me, he said, no, I'm like his father today. So I realized most of the guys never grew from where they were when it started with addiction. Things went wrong in their families. So they needed some comfort somewhere else. And that's where they run to. Alcohol, drugs, and various other ways of calming or soothing your mind, your spirit and soul. And it's only momentary.
Awesome. So far, can you tell us about the program, the duration, the selection process? Do you go out hunt for guys who are into gangsterism, into drugs, or they come to the church? Are they member of the church? Is it open to the public?
Well, we attend church here on a Sunday.
Okay.
I had to find a house to rent. That's how desperate it was in Extension 1, 1407 Katie Street. I used to go in the beginning to guys which I knew needs help. So that's how the program started. Then I had an application process where I have the application forms. Currently there are more than 20 guys. So I go at times, some, but mostly now after the 4 or 5 months, in the 4th, 5th month of the program, they come themselves. People have heard about it in Geluksdal, and it's a place where I do not have enough space anymore. So currently we're waiting for a plot or for a farm we're going to start the recreation process and the skills development.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. So, and but what you just said, I think you're saying most of the guys here, they show willingness. They are willing to get help or they are not forced in terms of maybe no one is dragging them, say, you need to change. This drug thing is something that they say, you know what, like you said.
Yeah.
Or in your example, you said you always knew who you
Yes.
were. So meaning you knew that you were not meant for that particular life. But how about the guy who doesn't know who he is? And then that's the only thing they know.
Yeah. And what happens is, there are instances where I had to really drag some guys because of their parents and try and bring them to the realization. So I do a day-to-day discipleship Bible study. So I don't run it as a rehabilitation program. I run it as a boot camp.
Okay.
We detox to running every morning, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, I think I've once seen some guys jogging.
Yes,
Yeah.
those are the guys, every Monday to Friday. Okay, Wednesday are our fasting days. So we run, and then during the process, some guys within the first 21 days, they want to run away. They want to go back home. The addiction, the desire for that drug and whatever kicks in again. So what I do is I preach the gospel to them. I take care of them. Some of them come without clothes, some without food, abused and neglected. Yeah, they may be old. I don't know what happened to them, and that doesn't really concern me at the time. The only thing that concerns me is that I should show love and care to them.
Okay. So, what is it that I wanted to ask? I wanted to ask this part. And all that the founding for that is from the church, or is it from your own pocket, or the other sponsors, maybe community? Maybe?
Currently, in these 5 months, there were people who came to sponsor and help as little as they can. But most of it comes out of my own pocket. My wife and I run the program. So I am fully in full-time ministry, not employed by the church, but under my own NPO which I am running. So no government funding currently, no other sponsorship or funding. Most of what I get and do comes out of my pocket. There will be few people who would come now and then give meal or sugar, that and that, etc. Everything mostly comes out of my pocket.
So are there other maybe service providers, like maybe, let's say maybe social workers, like, I'm just making an example, like maybe psychologists who works with you, who say maybe we are collaborating, because I'm thinking of how do you deal with withdrawal symptoms, like something like that?
I have a psychologist
Okay.
that works with me on a daily basis.
Awesome.
So what I do is, I do the practical, she does the psych. I do the spiritual as well as the physical.
Yeah.
So when there's instances when I realize this guy needs psychological care, then I would send him to the psychologist. But sometimes not even necessary. Sometimes you do not know or see these signs and symptoms. And a reason and a real reason why this person has fallen into addiction. So I try and prove it through my ways and methods. Understand? But then the psychologist comes in as well. That would be Miranda Marigan, which is Miranda Cock currently. She is the one that assists me
On
with
the
this
psychological side.
Psychological side of the program.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Okay, and like anything maybe in terms of the sponsors, the involvement of the community, because this is not just a church program. Looking at it, it's a community project. So,
Yes.
what can you say maybe to the community member as far as maybe motivation to be part of it in terms of maybe assistance where it's necessary, like things, practical stuff like the ones, venue, food, money and stuff.
Well, community, most of them know me by now.
Okay.
They know where I'm situated. People from Takani, Guatemala, Niger, Duduza, even Springs, in Brackpen, Dow Park area, in the Boxburg area, in the Mapleton area, in the Womo Park area. They know me by now, so they can always look me up on Facebook, SHOALLYN STOFFELS.
Okay.
And then whatever they have means, doesn't matter what it may be, they can come anytime and sponsor.
And contribute.
It's always free, the doors are open.
Oh, okay, Pastor.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was that. I just wanted just an understanding. So I think maybe you can call maybe one or two, maybe one guy that
Okay.
maybe was part of this program, and then maybe I can come and have a chat with them. So, but before we leave, have you ever maybe dealt with situation? Let's say, maybe for example, this guy was part of the church, and then maybe because of I'm talking as someone who knows drugs, sometimes addictions.
Okay.
That sometimes when you are dealing with addiction, sometimes they steal. Have you never encountered that situation where someone comes and then they act as if they are part of the church or they are part of, the program,
Yes.
but from that they steal to continue, go back to their criminal
Yeah.
activity? Not their drug addiction, but they're still part of the church.
Yes, I have encountered even yesterday. I had to let go one guy yesterday because while we were doing, I think it was here about for 4 days, but then I give them tests and time to prove themselves.
Okay.
So he's told 200 rand. So for me to not go to the police station and make a case, I actually just told him to leave the premises. Because if he was going to be serious, he was going to adhere to the rules and regulation of the program. So I encountered that on a
So how
daily
did he
basis.
steal it? Where was it? The 200?
Well,
He
I
stole
give
it
you
from.
sometimes a bag
Oh.
to hold, sometimes I trust you with one of two
Oh,
of things.
yeah.
So then you decide what you do with it.
Aish.
Then you bear the consequences. Yeah, so there are in that incidents, but I have my ways of dealing with it.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Okay, no, thank you, Pastor Shaws, and I think, I can have maybe one or two guys.
Okay, yes, another guy
Okay.
you can talk with.
Okay.
Alex,